friends at Tivoli Brewing Company and the Department of Communication Arts and Sciences at MSU Denver, this is Unfiltered. And here are your hosts, Jay Schrader and Dr. Samuel J.
It depends. I come in about 4:30
Okay.
because we're making donuts.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
Yeah.
That's a total change in probably your schedule.
Yeah, huge change. I got
When did that open up? When did this site open up?
this side.
Yeah.
This side opened up in 2011.
Okay.
We started with just the one side in 2010. This
Yes.
side opened in 2011, and then we just started donuts. This is like our 9th day.
Okay. Oh, are you serious?
Yeah, it's like our 9th day. So we have a couple guys who come in at 2:30 in the morning.
Okay.
I get here at 4:30, and then a couple more guys come in at 5. And
Okay.
We're making
Well,
donuts.
Something very unique about your donuts.
Yeah, they're potato donuts.
Well, hold on. Where are we, Brock?
Sorry.
No, we slow roll into this, so you're good.
Yeah.
Where are we?
We are at Hops and Pie, located at 39th and Tennyson in the Tennyson, I guess, business district. Is that
Tennyson Business District, Berkeley Neighborhood.
Berkeley Neighborhood? Correct.
And your name is?
Drew Watson,
And you are?
chef, co-owner, beer buyer, fixer of toilets, and all
do it
the
all.
other things.
Yeah. Do you remember what Nate had said his name was? The Claude Dubois?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Just a man of all trades. There was
Yeah.
a
Professional problem solver.
Yeah.
That's
That
it.
makes total sense. All right, let's go back to the donuts, and then we'll kind of backtrack everything. So it's made out of potato flour?
No. So we use Jones Family Farms russet style potatoes. We
Okay.
cook off the potatoes, we put them through the ricer, we add them to our donut batters. We make a sourdough donut.
Okay.
We use an 8-year-old sourdough starter for that. We make cake donuts, gluten-free donuts, vegan donuts, and a whole bevy of flavors in each style.
Why donuts? What made you decide to try that experiment?
So a couple years ago, I was at a bachelor party in Portland, Maine, with a bunch of chef pals, and one morning we went out after doing bachelor party things for some food, and we ended up at the Holy Donut.
Okay.
And I ate one of these donuts, and it was just one of those like aha, mind-blowing kind of moments.
Were they
And,
also potato?
They were potato donuts, yeah, and that was the thing. I was like, what are these donuts? What's so different about them? So come to find out they are potato donuts, and so I returned home from that bachelor party and just started feverishly making donuts in my kitchen at home. There was a fry waiter on our counter for years. It smelled like a carnival. My wife would come out in
why
the
you
middle of
have
the
one.
night. She'd be like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, making donuts. What are you doing?
Time to make the donut.
Yeah,
Gotta
it's
make
like
the
I
donut.
couldn't stop every day making donuts. So 2 years or so went by. I went back to Portland to have them again because I'm not trying to copy them by any means, but it was an inspirational kind of thing. You know, so I wanted to go back and revisit them. And then in doing that, their original location is next door to the triple decker that my mom grew up in Portland.
Okay.
So it just gave me this kind of weird, like, I don't
Just
know.
Meant to be.
Yeah, something like that. So here we are. Yeah, we closed down for a week in January to remodel the kitchen. We put in a new hood, got a bunch of new equipment,
So
brought some guys in. And
do you sell them out of this, or do you have a window, or
So you would go to the register where you pick up your takeout if you were coming in for pizza.
Okay.
So the donut shop is located within Hops and Pie.
Got it.
It's open at 7:30 Wednesday through Sunday, and we sell we run it until we sell out. And
Yeah.
we've sold out almost every single one of the 8 days we've been doing this.
Nice.
Last
Yeah.
weekend they were gone by 9:30 a.m. I
Yeah,
was
we
like,
lost
"Oh,
a good
crap."
we lost a good donut place back at the end of the year with Glazed and Confused closing
Yeah,
down.
They're
So
in the Central Market, right?
they were in the Stanley Market.
Stanley Market, right? I knew it
Yeah,
was one
but
of
they
them.
had their other location originally down on Leedsdale.
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like Monaco-ish. I don't know exactly what their cross street was, but yeah, we lost a pretty significant and well-known donut maker in town, and you guys have filled that void, and everybody must be looking for it.
Yeah, it's donuts is a whole different animal, you know.
Sure.
Coming from the pizza game, and I was a fine dining chef for almost 2 decades before that.
Okay.
So donuts are very different, very different.
Can you pair a donut with a beer?
Absolutely.
So what do
you
you
can
do?
pair anything with a beer.
Oh yeah.
Are you doing that actively here? As you're kind of making the menu?
We're not pushing it because it's our 8th day, but
Yeah.
we've definitely had some early morning beer club folks come in and be
Yeah.
like, "Hey, what beer should I have with this donut?" And fix them up.
Yeah. I remember one of the greatest days of my life was when I was in college. I went to visit a friend of mine at Notre Dame, and we were tailgating before a football game, and we were just at one of their parents' tailgate, and there was just a whole spread of donuts, and then all the beer you're drinking at the tailgates. And I think that's all I ate that day. But to this day, just that memory of drinking beer and eating donuts has always cemented in my head. And
Homer Simpson, man.
Oh, that is true. I didn't think about
he knew
that.
stuff.
Yeah, he did, for sure. So your background, you said, obviously a high-level chef. Where were you working? Where did you get started?
I grew up in Plymouth, Massachusetts,
Okay.
which is a tourist town / fishing town / cranberry town. So
Okay.
those are your industries. So about 13 years old, I needed a job. My brother-in-law got me started in a local diner. Started washing dishes and worked my way up to flipping eggs and
There's
making
no child
pancakes.
labor law at that?
No, not back then. There wasn't. I mean, you could also smoke cigarettes in the
Yeah.
kitchen.
Yeah,
That's the kind of time it was.
Yeah, you walk into any store, it was smoking or non-smoking.
Yeah, it was fine, and nobody thought it strange that your waitress had a cigarette when she dropped off your plate.
That's so true.
What do you
But-
have, sugar?
Yeah,
Oh, sorry about the ashes.
yeah, it's fine, But so from there, I moved up to Boston. I went to Newbury College, studied culinary arts and hospitality, and cooked around Boston for several years. And then I wanted to get better at the farm-to-table thing, so I sold everything I owned, and I moved to Sonoma and Napa. Worked there for about 5 years, and met my wife there. She was on her externship from the Culinary Institute of America, and we both ended up cooking on the line at Julia's Kitchen at Copia.
Oh,
We
yeah.
continued to cook around the wine country for a few years. Eventually got engaged, moved down to San Diego, got picked up by Starwood, ran one of their hotel kitchens there for about a year, but I hated that big corporate life.
Yeah.
And so I went to be the chef de cuisine at Pamplemousse Grill. Did that for a few years. Leah was a food and beverage director at the Bridges at Rancho Santa Fe, which is a super fancy country club.
Too fancy for us.
Crazy fancy. Phil Mickelson plays golf there.
Okay.
It's fancy.
It's real fancy.
But anyway, she and I we were tired of running other people's places.
Yeah.
I was going to leave the industry and become an umpire.
A what?
It's the only other thing I really wanted to do.
A fucking baseball umpire?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to be a baseball player, but I wasn't good enough. So the only other
Wow.
way to,
This
stay
conversation
in the game.
just got
There you go.
way better.
This guy, Sam, is probably the most knowledgeable baseball. You're a member of what?
Saber. I'm a Saber member.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're a
You just-
baseball nerd.
You just,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do.
Okay.
We don't. Yeah, we'll put people to sleep, but you and I should talk
Yeah,
later.
for sure. Okay, so
So,
umpire, the umpiring chef.
I was gonna go become an umpire, and
Beautiful face.
but Lee and I thought we'd take a chance and sold everything we owned and moved to Denver. Our brothers lived here,
Okay.
so we were drawn to here by the craft beer scene and family.
And what year was that then?
This was 2010.
Okay.
And we started looking for a spot, and we couldn't find anything, and we kept looking and looking and looking, and we're about to give up and go back to what our other plans were, and we were walking down Tennyson Street. And Tennyson Street was very different in 2010. There were boarded up businesses, bodegas, laundromats. And
We were talking. Both
about
of
it.
us got our kids natural cloth diapers at that place that used to be across the street. Is it still open? There was a baby store. You guys,
Yes.
okay? Are they still there?
Oh, well, it's a different one if you're talking about back in the day.
Yeah. What was it back in the day, like in
I can't-
2010?
Yeah, I can't remember.
I can't remember. Okay.
I can't remember.
all right.
There were very few businesses
Yeah.
on the street. Like you would get robbed, and your cars would get robbed.
Really?
Like it was different. But times have changed, and
Yeah, the whole Berkeley neighborhood has changed. Just in the last, well, I don't say in the last 5 years, but yeah, I mean, it's
5
it
years
is
was
su-
the big change.
Yeah,
And
it's
I think-
definitely hit a point where this is now a great neighborhood and tons of families, tons of young families, and so I'm sure your clientele is probably going to be a lot of probably early 20s, mid 30s folks.
Yeah, they tend to. We've seen it turn over twice now. That young family, right? And we did it too. We used to live down 26th and Osceola, right off
Okay.
Sloan's Lake, and our daughter was about to start elementary school. We moved to Deep Arvada, and that's about what happened.
Well, at least you're near New Image, right?
Closer to Cannonball,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
which is fine by me.
Oh yeah, it's better IPAs. Sorry, New Image. They
Hutch
make good
makes-
beer. Yes,
Hutch
but
makes fine beer.
yes, absolutely. So it sounds like you have always been, at least since you've become a professional or a worker, a part of these communities known for craft beer. The Northeast, San Diego, Southern California, and now here. What is your history with craft beer? When did it start?
Well, when I got into it, I was more of a wine guy.
Okay.
Spending that 5-6 years in Sonoma and Napa.
Right.
I lived 10 minutes from Russian River Brewing Company.
Jesus.
And I would go there quite a bit, but I was by no means a craft beer guy at that time. And then when I moved to San Diego and I was running the kitchen at Pamplemousse Grill, one of my cooks was a home brewer, and we broke down the kitchen every Sunday night, and he would always bring in some home brew, plus maybe a couple bottles from Port or Lost Abbey or Green Flash or whatever. And I mean, all these breweries, the Solana Beach Pizza Port was 2 blocks from the restaurant. So we would go there after work a lot. And it just kind of slowly happened, and then I just kind of fell in love with it. I was like, this is awesome. I was a High Life guy prior to this, If I was hanging out with buddies, it was High Life. That was it.
It's the champagne of beer.
Yeah, and that answered my question that I had posed the long table folks.
Which was, what was your...
if you're having a backyard barbecue and you're going to plan on drinking half a case of beer, what is it? Sounds like you're the High Life guy.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was.
Now what is it?
Utica Club.
Oh, yeah.
Who makes that? I don't even know what that is.
It's upstate New York.
Yeah. You know who's big into that is the Bonanno group. So any of the Bonanno restaurants you go to, they have always have Utica Club specials,
Really?
like $2 cans.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I think, what's their shtick? I believe they were the first brewery after Prohibition or something like that.
Okay.
But it's one of those old, kind of like Old Style is, right? For, what is it, Chicago? Like, Utica Club in upstate New York is...
Yeah, the ironic thing that Old Style's not made in Chicago. It's a Milwaukee beer. But
it is now.
Oh, really?
That the Cubs,
I didn't know that.
But it became
But
a
it's
Cubs
there.
staple. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is all over the city of Chicago, but it's not a Chicago beer, which I didn't necessarily know. I grew up a Cubs fan. I didn't really know the whole background of the Old Style until, I don't know, 5 years ago.
What's the background?
Well, I'm not saying the background, but it ended up being sold. I don't know the true story. Being sold at Wrigley just for cost, and that's the Cubs fans just took to it.
Interesting.
And that's the thing about those like regional breweries, right? My wife's from PA, so Yingling.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you don't even order it by Yingling. I love this. When I'm in our hometown, you say, "I'll take a lager," and you give you a Yingling.
That's what it is. Yeah.
I love that. Pacific Northwest Olympia. You
Yeah.
know?
That is true.
Texas has what? Shinerbach
Or Lone
and-
Star.
or
Lone Star.
Lone Star.
Lone Star,
Yeah. I don't know. I like that.
I was at in case anyone's wondering, if you go to the Austin airport, I was there a couple years ago, and I was at, I think, the Salt Lick
Has a
barbecue.
spot there,
There's
yeah.
a spot
Yeah.
at the Austin airport. And I was like, I'm in Texas. I'm going to get some Salt Lick barbecue and a Lone Star. They charged me, quote, imported price, because they had different prices for domestic and import. Their Lone Star at the Salt Lick spot at the Austin airport was considered an import.
They probably just put that label on there so you make a little bit more money.
Yeah. Yes,
And how many people want that though? I would want that.
Yeah.
I'm at the airport. I want Salt Lick or Franklin barbecue, but not available.
I don't think they have that. Yeah.
But with a Lone Star or Shinerbach or
It's right there. Okay, so you're doing that. You moved to town. What was your first gig here then? What were you doing when you first moved to Denver?
First moved here. Well, we did some consulting while we
Restaurant?
catering.
Catering.
Yeah. While we looked for a spot
And you knew this was your model, what you wanted to do here.
I could see it in my mind.
Okay.
And that's kind of weird, but I knew exactly what it was.
And you knew the pizza model, or the pizza and having all the finest craft beers across the country model, or was it
both? It's
Okay.
just what I wanted from before we even moved here to get it going. Writing the business, we wrote our business plan at Stone Brewing, which we lived about a mile from at the time.
Jesus, this guy.
Well, once he converted to craft, like you said, he was in the right places.
Yeah, I
no
was
kidding.
living in North County, and all those breweries were outside my front door.
My
it was
word.
unbelievable. We started looking for a place. Couldn't find one. About to go back to work. We walked by this. There was a for lease sign in the window. It used to be an art gallery, and it was
Okay.
just the single side.
Yep, remember that.
And contacted the landlord, and the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah.
Why have you only stuck to this location? Knowing the success that Hops and Pie had.
Why not? I don't understand
know.
the mentality of I want 700
Yeah.
restaurants. No,
Okay,
I did
perfect.
this to work with my wife.
Yeah.
And
this is your
grow a
family
team.
business.
This is my pizza family.
Yeah.
Like I have guys in the kitchen who've worked here since day one.
You know
there's-
them, they know you. You're
Yeah.
invited to their house, they're invited to yours. It's a
They're
fantastic.
family. I care
Yeah.
about them as much as I care about anybody.
I guess I asked because I know, just hearing your background as a chef and a trained chef and obviously a very good one, the franchisees model has been very kind of hackneyed a bit. I'm just wondering, did you ever feel those pressures?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, people approach us on the semi-regular, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
it comes up. We looked into it a few times, but, I don't know. The second, I have 2 kids that, I mean, all I want to do is spend time with them.
Yeah.
You add another location, you can cut the time I'm spending with them in half, if not more.
So it
And
sounds
that
like
doesn't interest me.
having a pretty good pulse on craft beer in this town. Do you enjoy that kind of turn back to just the taproom model that we seem to be seeing in town now?
I love that.
Okay.
I love that. In fact, that's, if I was to have it my way, that's the way it would be.
Yeah.
You know?
I've lived in Denver since you guys have been opened. Never near here, but I've come here a number of times, and I always know the reputation you guys have for, obviously, your food, but also for having and carrying and having release parties for many different breweries, especially, around festival time and whatnot. How did that start, that you were able to get into a world that you could, talk to a specific brewery or whatnot and say, hey, our location's going to be your special release, or during JBF, where was the genesis of all that?
There was a lot of dumb luck involved there.
Perfect.
Because honestly, we opened before the craft beer boom.
Oh, yeah.
And we didn't know there was a craft beer boom coming.
Yeah.
We did it because we liked it. Lee and I love beer, like, for real, And so we were early. Before there was, there was Falling Rock, the grand poobah of all beer bars.
Right. Yep.
And then it was us and Fresh Craft. And one more that I can't think of off the top of my head right now. As far as mom and pop, there was Old Chicago and such, but there was 3 real beer bars in town besides the chains. And so everybody was in the early days there. When there was very little of a special beer, like, we were getting it because we showed that dedication. Because we weren't selling cores, because and nothing against Silver Bullets or Banquets, but that just wasn't our thing. Yeah. So it was a lot of dumb luck, and because of what we were dedicated to, we wanted to support like-minded folks, craftsmen who were producing things with their heart and all that kind of stuff. So it stuck and it snowballed, and we were able to now, the people we came up with, so to speak, they're kind of, we call the brewers directly, or the founders directly. Like, we don't really deal with street reps, which is interesting.
You've now established that relationship.
Yeah.
And you can now just go right to the source. And because I know you guys are one of the select few in town that has the Pliny the Younger, every year. So that's obviously a badge of honor.
And I called them in 2010. I called them. I was like, hey, Vinny, my name's Drew. You don't know me, but I used to live down the street in Sonoma. I used to spend my tiny cook's paycheck in your tap room every week. I would love to be able to pour your beer. And I stayed on the phone with him a little bit, and so that unlocked some doors.
Were they, and not to just pinpoint Pliny in Russian River, were they at that time, bringing Pliny the Younger across?
Well, back then they were.
Okay.
Maybe not till the next following year, but maybe they were. I honestly can't remember. But then it was, I wanted to pour Pliny the Elder.
Right.
Because that's the beer I drank in Sonoma if I could afford it.
Because you can get that year-round.
You can. It's made year-round. And, so that's what that phone call was about. And I made a lot of those phone calls back then. And it was before the craft beer boom. So it was easy to call a brewery and get the owner or the brewer on the phone. Now you could, if you tried to call Russian River and ask for Vinny, they'd tell you to pound sand. But it was a different time when they were accessible and they weren't rock stars to the general public, I guess,
How much of your access has to do with the fact that you treat the beer right? Is it everything? I mean, aside from networking and being, relationship building, it has to be, I can send a keg there, and it's not going to sit in the back and not be on ice or cold, and it's, it's going to taste off and anything like that. Just talking to brewers, I know how important that is,
Yeah, it matters, and especially, to the beers that matter. It matters to us no matter the beer.
Right.
And, that's I used to explain that to anybody I was trying to get beer from. Be like, look, I have cold storage for my backup kegs. We clean the line after every single keg. Once a month, we break down our entire system.
Nice. Well, there you go.
You know, and that, I think that probably gained us access. But I think it was just our dedication across the board.
Yeah.
You know, I've called breweries and been like, hey, this keg doesn't taste right. Because dirty kegs happen. It's an accident, you know. Because being a chef, you know, I'm very in tune to making sure people get what's intended for them. So I call, you know, maybe it happens 4 or 5 times a year. I'll call up a brewer. I'll be like, hey, man, this tastes a little off. Maybe a dirty keg. You want to come down? They come down, they taste it, and either they're like, no, this is spot on, or hey, thanks. Yeah, this must have been a dirty keg. And they appreciate that. And, you know, I think perhaps that helps.
Do you tend to get more of the specialty beers? I mean, I don't know if that's the right word. More west of the Mississippi, or are you going to get people from like your local neighborhood or from your, you know, the Massachusetts? Like
we do.
Do you get Trillium and Treehouse?
We do. We've had. So I had a special connection to Trillium. One of my close friends was their executive chef, somebody I came up with. So we've had a few Trillium events here. You know, they'll send out 20 kegs specifically for us. We'll pour them.
Jeez, that's awesome.
So it's happened a few times over the last couple of years. Treehouse, I've never even knocked on that door because.
Does it matter what time of year, or does a lot of it come up around GABF that you may get the exposure?
Obviously, more stuff is available during GABF, but I've had good success at reaching out. As long as you got to have a lot of lead time if you want, because they're not approved by the TTB to be in state typically. So there's a process. They need a local distributor to import it and then send it over. And I have good relationships with some of the smaller distributors like True. They have a distribution company, and they'll do things like that for me sometimes. And you know, CSA has done some things like that for us in the past. Elite, which is really kind of all of them, and I really appreciate that. But it's a process, you know. So you got to call them with a plan, and kind of hope it unfolds. But it's a lot of work on their end too, paperwork and things like that. It's not just like, hey, you want to send some beer, and they call a truck and it comes out. You know, like
I'm sure before 2010 it probably could have been that model.
Well, there used to be a lot of what we would flip callers, even back to like, well, whatever. You'd get kegs in and it'd say like, just for conversation's sake, we'll say, it would say, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. Whatever. It would say what the national approved brand was on the top of the collar. Then you'd flip the collar over, and it would say what the beer actually was, and then you'd sell it. But nobody was watching for that kind of thing back then. So, but now you wouldn't horse
Sun
around
King
with that.
out of Indianapolis. It's permitted here, but it's truly something.
Sun King is awesome.
I'm from Indianapolis, and so
are you?
Yeah,
love their beer, man. Good people. We've done some events with them.
I'm actually going back there over spring break, and we have a place right near my mom's house, coincidentally called 20 Tap, and it's this model on such a smaller scale, but they try to, you know, 20 taps obviously makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think they usually just say 10 of these taps are local Indianapolis brews, and then we'll go forth like Drew's model and say, hey, who else wants to? Not who else. Hey, everybody, you want to come here? But they do the same type thing. They'll focus half their tap line for just local. And I don't know if that's like, you know, tried and true, like it has to be, but anytime I go there, I know I'm going to get a great Indianapolis local brew, and I know I have the option of getting, you know, something I may just randomly get an Odd 13 or a Jester King like you guys have on tap, or a Fremont, something like that. So they do have a pretty good model, but yeah, Indianapolis is becoming not that.
It is. You're right.
A lot of places,
You're
like you're saying, you have your Iowa. There's a lot of great breweries in Iowa too, but it's everywhere.
It sounds like you need to bring extra luggage so that way you can bring Drew and I some Sun King back.
That's a fine idea.
Yeah,
I like where your head's at.
I think you need to do that. Just tell Katie that's what you're doing.
Well,
it's an empty.
Yeah, I mean, we're flying Southwest, so you get an extra bag.
Yeah, it's true. For
sure.
That is the Beer Geeks airline.
Yeah. Well, I actually went to a wedding in Cleveland. This was years ago when New Belgium was not available east of the Mississippi. And I went to a wedding in Cleveland, and one of my friends lives in Colorado Springs. She and I were on the same flight. And she goes, oh, my bag is so heavy. I'm like, what? She goes, I'm actually bringing like 5 cases of beer from Colorado to Cleveland because everybody wanted New Belgium. She packed a bag and
full of beer.
Literally none of the bottles broke. Because this was before canning. You know, you probably have gotten to a point where you've had a lot of people asking about cans. That's a big shift
we
in the
hardly
world.
buy bottles here anymore.
Yeah.
Hardly. Cans are the new currency for sure.
So you brought up two. I mean, I do think of kind of Fresh Craft and Falling Rock as being beer bars in town. You know, I don't think Falling Rock has ever really focused on their food per se. Fresh Craft has tried to and kind of had a Midwestern kind of Iowa feel to it, knowing those guys are from Iowa. Why pizza? Why did you decide that?
A lot of reasons. One, Lee and I just love pizza.
Okay.
Like, we still, 10 years later, eat pizza almost every day. Like, we love it. And
how in the hell are you not massive?
like I said, I'm going to the gym.
Yeah.
Okay. For like 4 hours.
Yeah. So that was one. And two, we were trying to be smart, you know. People eat pizza.
Yeah.
It's not like you're having to reinvent the wheel with every diner, right?
Yeah.
So it's accessible. It's we, because of the way we make it, we're 100% from scratch joint.
Okay.
We have an 8-year-old starter in our dough. We put beer in our dough. We age our dough for a minimum of 4 days. We grind our own sausage, smoke our own meat. Like, it's a huge process. There's 15 guys that work in the kitchen. Jeez. And
I think one of the best things about doing the pizza model in Colorado is that there's not this whole regional, you have to follow a specific regional type of pizza. So you can make it however you want to make it. No one's going to call it Colorado pizza. It's your pizza. It's just, you just call it pizza. Because you get the New York folks that's like, oh, this isn't New York pizza. You get the Detroit, you get the Chicago, et cetera and so forth. So you guys can make your own pizza the way you want it, and no one's going to say this isn't Denver pizza, because that's not a thing. Which is
Oh, thank you.
very true. And pizza's one of the foods, one of the maybe the most, like, wherever you grew up, the pizza place you went to, that's pizza in your mind. You wouldn't believe how often I get this isn't pizza. And you're like, all right, chief. Whatever you want to say.
My wife doesn't listen to this more than 10 minutes, but I mean, she's a St. Louis kid and loves
Prevel.
It's like, that's not pizza.
St. Louis is not pizza.
No.
Sorry.
I mean, I get it. Like, it's like eating Velveeta cheese on a cracker.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
We actually had a pretty good place in Dayton, Ohio, where I went to college. They had these small, it was cut very small. It was called Marion's Pizza, and it was phenomenal. But no one said this is Dayton pizza. It's just the way they did it. And I don't know if anyone out there has ever had Donato's. It's a similar kind of smaller pizza, thinner crust, but cut into squares. Similar type of how it's set up, but it's different than the St. Louis. But and I have that in my head as being probably my pizza.
Exactly.
Not the best pizza. It's just my pizza, like you said.
Yeah, where I grew up, because it's a fishing town, there's a huge Portuguese demographic, right? So I never had Italian sausage on a pizza until I was an adult. We had linguiça. It's just a Portuguese sausage, but that's if you ordered a sausage pizza in Plymouth, Mass., you were getting linguiça, and that was it.
What is that? How does that differ from the Italian sausages?
It's got some sherry and paprika in it. It's closer to chorizo.
Okay.
But
Does that
still
have a kick?
very different. What's that?
Does it have a kick to it?
More of a sweetness and a smoked paprika kind of flavor, as opposed to like this is spicy.
Yeah.
Okay.
But regional, right? It's crazy how pizza's like that.
Go ahead. You're good.
Oh, I was just gonna probably change topics. I was gonna go over to what's coming up for you guys. Obviously, if anybody's a Marty McFly out there, and they're because I know this is not coming out today because you guys have a book signing tomorrow. But what do you guys have coming up? Big, specific releases that are timely for this podcast. I don't know when Sam's going to release, but what do you have? That's probably
Wednesday.
an ending question to promote, but more of a what's on the horizon for you guys?
We have our crown jewel event outside of GABF every year is our Sour Fruited and Wild Fest. So that's coming up in April. It's on the 11th. It's a Saturday. And there'll be a lot of options from Casey Brewing and Blending, some Jester King. There'll be some Cantillon, some Driefontein. Some of the benchmarks of those categories. That's always our biggest.
When you guys have festivals like this or release parties or whatever, do you change maybe a menu item to try to accommodate something that may go with a specific type of beer, a specific type of brewery or whatever? Like, do you add do you kind of think about the beer and pizza pairing of what they're bringing?
We do on occasion for some events, not for that one.
Okay.
You know, like we'll do Maine releases. You know, we had some Bissell Brothers a while back, and so in Maine Brewing Company, like we'll do
Lunch.
lobster rolls and
Lunch
chowder.
beer.
You know,
Don't they make lunch?
they make lunch, which is just one of the best pound for pound like IPAs. You know,
Yeah.
it's just great.
Have you had lunch?
I've never had lunch. No.
Yeah, it's. I had it one time over at First Draft.
Yeah.
Because they seem to have a pretty good rotation of outside Colorado folks coming in. But yeah, it is.
Lunch
phenomenal.
is good.
Sounds
And
like
any really Maine Brewing Company is one of those breweries where every beer is good.
Maine Brewing Co. I think I've had their
every
stuff.
beer.
I can't remember what.
You're just like, oh, this is just good.
Now, unfortunately, you're not drinking, so usually, at this time you would be a little lubed up and answer questions that maybe you don't want to. But I'm still gonna press you.
It's fine. I've been up since 3 this morning.
Okay.
So.
What changes are you seeing to craft beer in Colorado that you like, that you don't like, the trends that you enjoy? You are obviously plugged in as much as anybody else. What has surprised you?
Well, the changes, right? Openings, closings. I have to ask myself
Acquisitions.
every time. Yeah, acquisitions. I have to ask myself every time I hear a new brewery's opening. I'm like, seriously?
Yeah.
Why? But I get the why part sometimes, depending on what the reasoning is. But there's so much. I want to say about 2015-16, the investors types started getting into it because they were like, there's money to be made. I'm in. Who wants brewery money? And that's kind of, that bummed me out because leading up to that, it was more of a for the love of the game scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Like these guys were home brewers or shift brewers or brewmasters at commercial facilities, and they're like, I'm putting my tile out. I'm seeing if I can make this happen. I'm putting my world on the line, and they're living, sleeping, eating, drinking their brewery, and that kind of slowed down, and it more became, mediocre beer.
So is it a brewery starting because of that, or them getting extra money, like one that's already open, getting extra money to become that?
I don't understand your question.
Well, I guess you said the investors.
When money started just being poured into any, people not opening breweries for the reason.
For their passion versus.
For
I
their
got this
passion.
money. I just went to somebody that gave me money and opened a mediocre
Yeah,
product.
I know a guy who makes beer. We'll hire him. We'll open a tap room, and it's gonna be great. And those, in my opinion, were the ones that were opening that were starting to tarnish, right? Because that's important. You get somebody to cross over, right? Say a religious Coors drinker is going to try a craft beer, and they go to one of these mediocre joints, and they're like, well, this isn't really that good for $2 more a pint. Why would I drink it?
Yeah.
Whereas prior to that, you had one of these, religious Coors drinkers who were going to give it a shot. It was a better chance they were going to get a great craft beer. I don't know. I don't know if you're
makes
picking
a
up
lot
what I'm
of
putting
sense.
down,
No, it
but
100% does.
that bums me out.
There were a slew of Denver-based, Colorado-based breweries that got into it around those 1 or 2, 3 years that thought immediately they could scale. I think so. I think they were built to do that. Declaration, right? I don't mind saying that. And then that hurt the quality of the beer, and it just took it away, and people, they began to pick up on that. But I think to kind of, not to counter, but to second what you're saying, is we're seeing those kinds of breweries really suffer right now. I mean, we are. They're, again, to go back to Declaration, it's like, are you this or are you that? Which one are you? Because you can't be both if you don't make fantastic beer that is consistent and enough of it.
And that's what people were forgetting, right? Make a great product first.
Yeah.
I mean, good for you. You have a great location, or you have incredible branding, but without a great product, what do you have?
In this city, man, people pick up on that shit real quick.
This city, I mean, if you're selling sandwiches, have the best sandwich. If you're selling ramen, make the best ramen. If you're making whatever you're making, that should be your primary focus, is to make the best whatever they.
There are exceptions to that, and I'm obviously not going to name any names, but there are some, small to mid to large. I'll just be completely generic about this comment that everybody knows about and everybody drinks that I don't think make anything good, but they've succeeded. Yeah.
So they've succeeded with great force too. If we're thinking of the same place.
I think we probably are. I don't. Like
so we got to start paying our subscribers. Got to start paying for that extra.
Just have a
20-minute
have your
conversation.
Patreon of the 2 minutes of being like, oh, it was beep.
Yeah. No. Exactly. Well, I mean, I think you and I, or the three of us, are definitely on the same page in that return to the tap room model, in which these places just make better beer. Their beer, it's back. It's run a lot like this shop in the sense that it's about creating a community around what you're offering. It's about retaining your customers and making sure they want to come in and all of that. And I think that forces you to make a better product, whether that's pizza or whether that's beer.
Do you refuse to hold any specific types of breweries based on a specific idea? Okay, good.
I try to
we're not
pour
going to carry
beer
this
from like-minded places.
Okay.
And that's important to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you I guess it's probably not the right term, but is there like a specific size brewery that you say, well, like, I don't want to say they're too big, but it's probably more of like their mentality of like, they're not what we're looking for.
I don't do that until it's the sellout point. If you've gotten acquired, and New Belgium was the most recent big one, right? But some people that I'm pals with now just got their retirement supercharged, and that makes me happy. I'm not going to pour their beer again. Doesn't mean I won't drink their beer again,
or support their workers,
or support my friends that work there. But there's a very love-hate for me about that specific one. But and Founders, right? Not Founders Brewing, but just like there's some guys out there. The founder of Ballast Point. How was he going to say no? I was from living in San Diego. $1 billion. $1 billion. You know how that conversation went, I was told?
No.
Corona calls. They're like, hey, we want to buy your brewery. He's like, not for sale. They're like, name your price. He's like, $1 billion. They're like, done. He's like, okay.
Oh, my God. Okay, wow.
Well, Ballast Point's interesting because of what they've gone through within the last like 12 months. They went from sellout, and then everybody's like, oh, they're back. They are now a craft brewery again because of who they sold to. But if you read between the lines, it's actually a giant wine conglomerate, kind of like who Constellation Brands, who had bought them. They went. It just was.
Yeah, it's like, who wants this burning bag of shit for a great discount?
It just was that's a large. I don't even know like what the company you would consider them as, but it's a large wine company.
Was it Constellation?
No, that's who originally bought them.
Right.
Yeah, but it was they just sold to another guy, and like, oh, they sold to a local, just trust fund, not trust.
No,
fund,
is it the Chicago guys that they sold to? They resold to the Chicago group.
Yeah, they're
it's like
like
a brew pub, right?
Yeah,
but they're not a brew pub. They're owned by a large wine conglomerate.
Okay,
that's my understanding. That it looks. I think that's kind of like they worked behind the scenes to say that some local Chicago brewery bought them, but there's a bigger thing
umbrella
that owns that brewery or that brew pub, whatever. So
it's the whole sellout thing is interesting to me because, and you can probably chime in here. I think a lot of times Goose Island is thrown up there because of the book and because of AB as the example of selling out. I went to Chicago in November to a wedding and went to Revolution and met with the folks there. Obviously not a small brewery either, but they're a craft brewery.
Good brewery too.
Yeah, good brewery. They were, and this is not the first time I've heard that. I've heard this from several people around Chicago. The money that was re-injected into the Goose Island barrel program because of that buyout has allowed their brewers to do whatever the fuck they want, and their beer is better at that location. They can just
and
go
those beers, the Sophia, and those beers, they're beautiful beers.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna,
But it's a complex thing. I mean, I know exactly what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing, but it's we live in a weird world now where craft beer is no longer. Now I guess I don't want to say it's no longer. Now that divide between big craft and small craft is so much bigger than it ever has been, right? Like a Call to Arms is now way, way different from an Avery in ways that it wasn't 5 or 6 years ago.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
You could probably split the world into obviously macro, and that's the major folks. And you've got your major microbrews.
Yeah.
Your Dogfish, your Boston Beer Company, New Belgium, which is now off the table, whatever. Then you have your mid-range. So here in Colorado, you're talking your Odd 13, your New Image, just those, and River North, just kind of the middle. And then you have your just true local place, which I think goes back to what you were saying. Of those people are probably the ones, not to say who's better than others, but those are the ones that right now to this day. And we were just at Long Table. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Long Table. They're over in Park Hill. They don't want a can. They don't want a bottle. They don't want to distribute. They just want to be your neighborhood brewery, and they have that's all they want to do. And it's working for them because people want to go there just in the neighborhood, and it's a great. They actually put out a great product, but they just want to be your friend.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I love that. And those, we have a lot of breweries like that on and off of Tennyson. Hogshead down 29th, Call to Arms. Those guys are family. You know. Yeah. I walk down there quite often. Walk in the back door of the brewery, and Chris and I have a beer. I love that. That's like community. That's neighborhood. That warms my heart.
It's amazing how, I know we're going to shut her off here soon so you can go home or go work out and take a nap. But, being a professor of rhetoric, so much of it is about craft as a form and a frame and a word that we use to make sense of everything. And what is crazy is how big names like Boston Beer Co. have taken that, right, use their money to kind of make sure that craft is still attached to it, when in fact they're not. But that changes, aside from the three of us here, right, we are the kind of elite of craft beer drinkers, I think. I think the vast majority of craft beer drinkers, 75% of people, don't think the same way that we're having that conversation.
Or maybe they haven't realized what
it's emotional for us.
It is, right?
And haven't realized what has been bought, in essence, too. Because I've spoken to a few people that, my daughter's school, or dads or moms of the daughter's school, and they're like, hey, we'll go for a cookout or whatever, and they're like, hey, I got some Breckenridge. Not to throw Breckenridge on the bus, but yes, they did get bought out. But you like craft beer. I got some Breckenridge.
That's a great example, yeah.
Okay.
Great. I'm going to choke down this six-pack and go home and have a real beer.
That's vanilla porter.
Yeah.
Yes. So. Oh, my God.
Well, you guys have a beer club. So what? I don't know much about it. I just saw a sign on the wall. How do you handle that?
Our beer club has been around since maybe the second month we were open.
Okay.
So you knew what you were doing.
By accident.
Well, I guess you kind of knew.
Just dumb luck. It's been around since our second month, I think, maybe third. I can't remember. But I'd say we're over 1,000 because every member gets a number.
Oh yeah.
And if you don't renew, your number's never reused. But we're well into the thousands of members.
So if you re-up, you get your same number.
You get your same number, and it's been around. So $60 for a year. You get $1 off drafts anytime. You get your third draft on the house on Sundays. One Sunday a month, we pick 3 or 4 drafts and we sell them for 50 cents to you. You get in an hour early on Sundays.
Wow.
It was just I don't know, because back then or whatever, but
back in my day,
the craft beer community has evolved so much. The three of us sitting here are kind of the old guard of it at this point.
It's interesting to. You were throwing out dates, and you guys opened in 2010. I've lived in Denver since before that, and I lived in Cap Hill, and then I moved to the City Park neighborhood, and then I moved to Park Hill. And I think I moved to Park Hill in 2012, and even then, I don't think Station 26 was open, because that was the first one in the greater Park Hill neighborhood. The closest I could go to a brewery was actually Bull and Bush, and this was in 2012.
See, that's vintage beer nerd right there. Bull and Bush.
But
their beer's still good. I was there 3 weeks ago.
But just cool.
It is.
They got the big fireplace in the back. Yeah. But it's
you feel
crazy.
like you're in your grandfather's library.
Yeah, it's so true.
Anytime I get a growler filled, it was always Bull and Bush because there was nowhere else to go, and it's just a crazy change in just everything that we know as beer drinkers here in Colorado. And it's great and it's bad. Like you were saying, there's those people that just there's a place that used to be on 17th and I think Franklin. It was called Deep Draft, and I guess I'm going to throw them under the bus. It was my wife got a saison and a pale ale, and I got a stout and an IPA, and all 4 beers taste the same. It just was just gross, and I there was
That's an outrage. Did you flip over the table?
and
I'm outta here.
They were like kind of warm and
Only on the internet. Yeah.
yeah, it just was more of a. They just were opening for opening's sake.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to ask before we get off. You met Guy Fieri.
I did. Yeah.
What was he like?
You know, that guy does something for small businesses
Yeah.
that nobody else does.
How much of that? I mean, like, are you still seeing?
In the time, this was 2013, it changed my life.
He came here
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Changed my life.
My brothers came out here and wanted to. This is where we came
because of
because
Yeah.
of.
He does
Triple D.
something for small businesses that I could never repay him or thank him enough.
How did that work? Does he seek you out? Does Food
So
Network?
it's a strange process, man. You get approached, but you get an email or a phone call, and they're like, "Hey,
guy
we're
at
scouts.
foodnetwork.com.
You know, we're scouts for Food Network. There's a program that's interested in you. Are you interested?" And then you respond, "Of course I'm interested." And then they're like, "Okay, fill out this questionnaire." You fill out this questionnaire. Then you fill out another question, and it goes on this interview process for months, and it's pretty intense. And then you never hear from him again.
Yeah.
And then you get a phone call. They're like, "Okay, we'll be there in 2 weeks." And you're like,
I thought you were saying 2 hours.
you know, like 2 weeks you're to get rid, which, you know, there's a lot to make sure you're prepared. And
Yeah.
so yeah, turned it around and got ready, and it happened. And you know, he's a nice guy.
Yeah.
He's a nice guy. He works. His team, they were in here for 2 full days.
Yeah.
I would say maybe 20 hours for 2 minutes of television. They work so hard to make you look as good as they possibly can. That's a very noble thing they do.
I have heard a friend of a friend of a friend had a restaurant that I think was in Indianapolis, and
Yeah.
same process. Like
Yeah.
I think the main thing is kind of like his actions and the way he looks, but truly he actually is just such a down to earth. He truly wants you to be the best that you are.
It means a lot to him. And, you know, he's from Sonoma County.
Okay.
So I've been to his restaurants there before there was ever his show or he was ever
or
famous.
the Guy restaurant in Times
Yeah.
Square.
Yeah, and since then, you know, I was in Sonoma at a friend's birthday party when the big fires happened a couple years ago. I woke up to it, and it was insane. But he does so much for his community there, too. He does so much for elementary schools. He's an amazing dude.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Drew.
Any other national media you guys got? Like besides that?
Yeah.
Let me get my portfolio out.
Yeah, we've been super lucky. We've gotten a lot of awards over the years, and
You make good beer. I mean, you make good pie. You serve good beer. I mean, this place is really cool. It's a place that you want to be. It's got a vibe. It's got a great bar. If you want to sit at the bar and eat, breadsticks or something.
And like Drew was saying, the people who work here have worked here since day one. Not all of them, but most of them. And it's a family atmosphere, and you know what you're going to get. You know you're going to get the type of service and the type of attention. You know, it's not just service. It's like people actually want to. They want you to have their best experience. They want to ask you, like, what beer do you drink? Because I'm sure your staff is probably very knowledgeable about what you have, about what's on the menu, what's on the food menu, and everything like that. They want this place to be the best that it can be.
Yeah, we're so lucky. Our team is everything. You're only as good as your team. And like I said, man, they're our pizza family. They are. I'd do anything for any one of them any day.
Yeah, that's awesome.
In closing, there's a place in Columbus Junction, Iowa, my town of 2,000 people, called Hawkeye Pizza. And this looks and feels just like Hawkeye Pizza, except my dad was not drinking Lush from Fremont. He was probably drinking a Busch Light or a Bud Light or something. But Drew, cheers.
Yeah,
Thank you
cheers.
so much. We really, really appreciate it. Make those gains, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy.
Come on down to Hops and Pie.
Boom. Or bam. What's Guy Fieri say? No, that's Emerald.
That's Emerald. Emerald's.